Hello, it's about kind of 3 AM in the morning. I am now exhausted, however I would really like to do this video. But as I say, I'm very tired, so it might not be the best of the best. But this will be how to actually deal with kind of magical attacks, in terms of employing such defensive black magic. And so I'll be going into actually how to defend yourself against magical attacks in this video. So to begin with, firstly, really when one is dealing with kind of black sorcery, it's necessary to engulf yourself in some kind of protection, and the manner to do this is to essentially engulf yourself within the Kingdom of Darkness, because the magic of the Kingdom of Darkness won't necessarily pertain to do harm to the kingdom as a whole, because when black magic is done for negative effects, it's to empower the individual doing it, sometimes at the cost of other people or other things. However, by becoming a part of the Kingdom of Darkness as a whole, you can in effect essentially gain from any black magic which results in benefit to the Kingdom of Darkness, even if that magic initially might have resulted in potential problems for you. You can, by a process of engulfing yourself in the black flame, actually benefit from the magic sense against you, and a lot of actually responding to black magic is actually using it to make yourself stronger, almost like kind of a snake absorbing venom to make itself even more powerful. Thus I really call this venomous magic, and I'll be talking more about that in a bit. But kind of when engulfing oneself, one wants to think about the eternal aspects of all the parts of the Kingdom of Darkness, and how the Kingdom of Darkness rules over everything, and to essentially entirely engulf yourself within this. So the Wiccan symbol of protection is often quite useful, and I've shown this to the side, where essentially you have the 5 elements, which sometimes the pentalpha refers to when the horns are not really referring to kind of, horns pointed towards heaven. You have kind of the points of the pentalpha referring to the kind of elements and the unity of everything, and the circles representing infinity. So essentially, by meditating on the symbol, or better even actively engaging on it by drawing it, you are immersing yourself in the Kingdom of Darkness as a whole, and therefore benefiting from any black magic they may be pertaining to do. Also a good thing to do is perhaps recite essentially some Nokian trance, because they're essentially were devised as a language of angels. However, really there are also other spirits which might well identify as fallen angels, but they are capable of using the same kind of tongue, and so it resonates with a certain degree of power. Unfortunately, to note, this is kind of Nokian, in that it's not the, we don't really have Nokian in its fully fleshed out form without extending it slightly, and this is an example of where it's been extended slightly based on the original Nokian. However, basically, what this phrase says is essentially, my God, my kind of like high God is love. And so you're bathing in the Kingdom of Darkness, but you're then turning it around and focusing on the kind of divine kind of healing and protective and rejuvenating nature of Lucifer, and if you focus on that nature, then that is very much what Lucifer will show to you, and therefore that will help kind of negate any negative effects of kind of the black magic which has been kind of directed against you, because you're engulfing yourself in essentially the brightness of Lucifer, and you're therefore inviting that power in. And note to this, really, when I say the word God here, I mean God in a kind of honorific sense. When you're calling Lucifer God, you're not saying he's necessarily an all-powerful being, but you are exalting him as essentially the king of the kingdom of darkness, the leader, one who essentially sets creation free from the snares of life and of other spirits. And you can also use this, which is essentially a kind of a trance, which is using certain mantra to kind of Lucifer, which I've altered marginally for the purposes of essentially making it more similar to kind of certain tongues which I've read about which have imbued darkness in them, specifically looking at kind of inspiration from kind of linguists such as Tolkien, who, though devising their own language, knew a lot about language and how to imbue it with certain stresses. So this is kind of imbued with certain techniques that he used to devise some of his perhaps more darker languages. But it is essentially still a prayer and a mantra to Lucifer, and therefore worth reciting and using to call upon him. And I will leave the pronunciation to you, although I have attached on the next slide the kind of a link to the actual video itself, where it uses a kind of something similar to this but not quite this, because I've added a bit of darkness on it to suit my own personal taste, and suit essentially the kind of immeasurable power of the black flame. And also, another thing might be useful to do is to recite essentially ancient Greek phrases, for the ancient Greeks believed in many gods, and many of these gods kind of were influenced later pagan beliefs, and these kind of gods and spirits of later pagan beliefs were classed as demons by Christians. Therefore, there's a link to a lot of the kind of spirits we work with and kind of the ancient Greek gods, and therefore using ancient Greek words to refer to the spirit world and ask for protection is helpful. Although importantly, you are asking for protection, you do not have to beg. A big difference between Satanism and Christianity. In Satanism we ask, but with essentially pride, whereas in Christianity one has to humble oneself before a God. We don't do that in Satanism. But anyway, a good phrase to use might be essentially to ask the Greek god of protection, soteria, for protection, and the Greek words, ancient Greek words for protection is keres. Therefore, soteria keres might be might well help as a kind of mentor, as a or as essentially a defensive response. Again, magic is essentially fundamentally to do with the will of the practitioner, and so I would advise incorporating this into other kind of like rituals, which I will do more videos about, but using mantras, using words which have meaning in terms of the history of the religion, or using languages like Nokian, might well help, and most certainly these kinds of things help me ward off kind of black magic. And something I thought worth kind of sharing with you on kind of really the topic of feminist magic is when attacked, essentially remember to rejoice. For you are the embodiment and emboldened by the spirit of the angel of victory. Thus you shall rise like a phoenix from the fire. So whenever attacked or essentially challenges come your way, they are an opportunity to grow and to become stronger. And essentially by the guidance of Lucifer you will rise from that fire and be emboldened by it and strengthened by the flame and purified by the flame and come to know Lucifer's power like you never have before. Most certainly I have been on the spiritual attack before. But actually in some ways that's beneficial because without pushing past those things through the use of kind of close connection with Lucifer, I wouldn't really be doing this channel and wouldn't be able to share this with you now. So I hope, though this has been brief, this has been helpful. I'll do more videos on black magic in a kind of defensive context, but this is a good one, a fairly light one to begin with. And I would recommend checking out the YouTube thing I've linked, which has the Luciferian mantra, which I find incredibly calming, and essentially really helps me feel very safe in the presence of Lucifer too. And also, again, worth learning those Nokian phrases, and the protection symbol from Wicca, well worth using too in the context of drawing upon enemies' magic or magic set against you to actually absorb it into your own being and actually use it to fuel the black flame and thus grow yourself. Thank you for watching. I'm Venomous, and hopefully see you more soon.